Good day, distinguished ladies and gentlemen.
Civis
pacem parabellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. The Roman Empire, one of the major authors of Vigetius, his quote, his thoughts, is what I start my closing remarks with. I have hoped that these thoughts, which we have all encountered, are going to be the cornerstone to a certain extent of what we've been thinking about today and yesterday. This approaches the conservative ideas from the aspect or the perspective of home defense, and it also reveals that there's a problem with souls in the free world. Hungary is now led by a government which is a pro-peace government, but we also see that some powers greater than we are rushing towards war. And we are strengthening home defense not because we want war, to the opposite. We are strengthening our home defense in order to be able to prepare to defend Hungary from the war that others want. Why do we want peace? Why do we prepare for war? Why do we develop our defense industry, and why are we training soldiers? All this is because we have things to defend. We have families, we have homes, we have a homeland, and we have a nation. We actually are together with the people with whom we live together with. We know that we're coming from somewhere and we're heading to somewhere, and we know that we are heirs and we are going to be the ones leaving heritage behind. And meanwhile, the life that we live can only be entire and happy if everything we work with can be shared with others as well. A good serviceman, a good soldier, does not look at who's in front of him, but who's behind him. It is not led by hatred, but by the idea of serving someone and defending someone's. A truly conservative government develops the armed forces for that reason, and this is the reason why they do not start war. However, if they are forced to, they would win that war. And this also shows how much need we have of President Trump, who did everything and hopefully who will have the opportunity to do everything in order to avoid war. The 21st century communism, which is optimized to the current conditions, called woke, that denies all human identities or human relations. It denies God, it denies homeland, it denies the nation, and denies family, and denies the created sexual Jewership, gender Jewership. So everything in this respect is denied, including the state, the armed forces, and all of their institutions. Denial goes as far as taking power. As soon as they get power, they would not deny, they would ban. They would no longer be interested in freedom, individual freedom, spiritual freedom, press freedom, freedom of press, and freedom of thought. From that point on, there is no pacifism. From that point on, it is ideology in the name of which they wage war, and everyone becomes an enemy who so far had been defended by the armed forces. To us in Central Europe, this is historic experience. So, what is the situation in this respect in other parts of the free world? Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Jake Beckett, the veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces, our Republican comrade, according to the cover of the Washington Times, during the course of a Senate hearing, was looking for an answer to the question why the strongest and also decisive, for us decisive ally of ours, the United States, so there those who enroll into the armed forces are shrinking. And he said, why would youngsters want to enroll to defend their families if the state school they had attended had convinced them for years that their homeland is horrible and is not worthy of service? And he carried on. In our current educational system, there are only a few youngsters who hear real stories, because what they hear is that American heroes are depicted as wicked racists who had done horrible things to deprive people, and this really shapes the thinking of American youngsters, for which reason they less respect their institutions, respect our history less, and therefore they are less prone to put their lives on the line to serve their homeland, said Jake. There's a trouble. There's problem with the soul and the spirit, not only in the United States, but in the entire free world. History is an important tool of a politician, because the fable is not what is written by ideology according to the latest knowledge. It is science, what we can learn from. Because there will be no other than what we have always had. And this is also true if history does not always repeat itself. Now, when we are on a slippery slope going to the Third World War, according to some voices, we're already in it, and for governments that are the most influential governments of the free world, that had not known or could not prevent the war in Ukraine, and which have been involved in financing and funding terrorist organizations invoking the next World War, they are not really controlling the situation. They should really look back to the textbooks on the 20th century history, because the battlefields of World War I and II, and in the hell of these battlefields, and the dictatorships that are following godless societies. And this is just a fear that divided Europe. That of the European Union, which used to be a peace project because it brought about the historical agreement and accord of Germany and France, and also preparing for war because they created the economic conditions of defending against the Soviet Union. Now the woke-driven Europe and USA had not prepared or was not prepared for war, especially not spiritually. Those who are driven by woke, they very much follow the utopia of human thinking, and they disregard history, and they disregard history as a science and also as personal experience. They do not draw the lessons from the operation or the working of the international security system. They do not understand that no one can be far enough from the threat of nuclear war, and of course the party that shoots first would die second. And this is something we see very well in Hungary. And having learned the lessons, therefore, we, thanks to our sovereign policy and sovereign government, we are aware of what we should do. We believe and we claim that it is only based on the past that we can prepare for the future. Values we inherited from history could be the only basis of preparing a country that is up to the 21st century's requirements, including a society. And we do know that our armed forces, which has been dismantled by the socialist governments physically and economically, will have to be rebuilt. This is what we're doing. Because in order for this organization to be up to the tasks, we need 21st century high-tech tools, but in addition to that, we also need the lessons learned from our more than 1,000 years of military history to make that vivid and live again and use it in our current armed forces. We have to rely on the traditions of the past, and we have to live in the present in order to prepare for the future, and this is going to be a new element of the transformation of the armed forces. And this is why I just appointed a ministerial commissioner responsible for military identity. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we're living dangerous times. There is a war in our neighborhood, and one man in every 3 minutes dies. We have lost several hundreds of our fellow countrymen or fellow nationals. We have lost a lot, and we have to defend peace. Patriotism is something that made me throw up. I could do nothing with Germany, and up until today I cannot do anything with it. These are the words of Robert Habeck, the Green Deputy Chancellor of Germany, which did not prevent him to endeavor to lead Germany. Now, the German Greens do not know any longer what they want. Their program was pacifist when they got the power, and now they are warmongering, requesting the war to be continued. And not because they became patriot all of a sudden overnight. No, this is neo-Bolshevik rage. Because at the same time, polls clearly show that it is less than 1/3 or approximately 1/3 of the Germans who would take up arms to defend their homeland. New conservative policy is needed, or politics is needed in the entire free world, that could create the force and strength that would be committed to peace. That would create in souls and spirits and production lines lines and also training fields and battlefields if needed, and also at negotiation table eventually. Therefore, thank you very much for being here with us so that we can work together for the success of this policy. In one of the largest home defense stories of Hungary, and this was in the 16th century war against the Ottomans, in the Stars of Eger, the following quote can be read: "The strength of walls is not in the stones, but in the spirit of the defenders." In this 1,000-year-old country, we've learned that if we want to remain Hungarians, if we want to retain our personal freedom and national independence, then first and foremost we should believe in the force that is giving the strength of the walls. And this is the spirit of the defenders. Hungary is longing for peace, therefore is creating the strength for that. A peace in which freedom prevails, where there is a rule of law operating democracy, a peace in which our children could be born and raised, and who could then work for progress and prosperity. A peace in which there is mutual respect among nations, and they build their relations according to mutual interests. So we should not forget the words of Regitius, "Si vis pacem, para bellum." If you want peace, prepare for war. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the pro-war forces can only be stopped by people, and this is what the June elections are going to be about. Thank you very much for your kind attention.